Hi, I'm Kylie-Cloud. Welcome back to my favorite TV show. So after Tamisha goes home, Elliot mentions that every single person who has been on a team with her has gone home, which is foreshadowing for the rest of this episode. They're trying to make Elliot seem bullied. They're trying to force this storyline that she is unliked because of her depression. So they cut together a bunch of girls, laughing joyously in the room, and then cut to Elliot looking sad in the corner, making us think that they're laughing at her, which is untrue. This is all a big plan so that when she goes home next week, we'll go, oh, that's so sad. RuPaul walks into the workroom looking like a French mime. She's wearing very nice platforms today. She is about 7.5 feet tall. Okay, so today's mini challenge is the reading challenge. This is a great challenge. I love this challenge. The problem is that this challenge is not made for 10 girls to be in a room. This challenge is maybe made for 6 people in a room. So what ends up happening is that every single girl gets maybe 1 or 2 reads at best, which is not enough. In a normal season, maybe it's 3 to 4, which is a good amount. This was way too early to have a reading challenge. This week's main challenge is a Bossy Rossi reboot, something that we absolutely did not need. I guess you could say that we don't need any of the reboots that have happened, but we've got them anyways, and maybe that's the joke. So you know, all of the girls are split into teams, and they all look over the lines. They look over to characters. Ross is sitting in a lovely lawn chair wearing a green tracksuit and red glasses. This look isn't exactly flattering, but I think it's fine. Props on set include a lawnmower, some raccoons, and a gate that the girls have to open themselves when they come on the show. I think it's time that we stop hindering girls with mechanics. So Rosé is our first improver. I think that Rosé is doing an incredible job improving off of an invisible person. She's sitting there holding his hand, she's talking to him, he helps her sit down. I wish I had a boyfriend that helped me sit down. She's really having a two-sided conversation with someone who is not there. So Denali comes in, and Denali matches Rosé's energy and is just as good as Rosé. The problem is she doesn't know where the camera is. Every single line she says it at a camera that is not looking at her. So we get all these very strange views of her side because she's not looking at the camera that's getting her. At a certain point, she finally snaps out of it and looks at the camera that is filming her. Lala Ree walks on set, and the little garage light comes on, and she goes, "Ooh, baby, I thought I was in my neighborhood." That was her best line, and everything from there is just downhill. I don't think Lala was the worst person in this entire challenge. I just think the problem was she was paired with 2 powerhouses, Rosé and Denali, who are so good at this. So throughout this entire challenge, while a team is acting, all of the rest of the girls are watching the team on a TV in the workroom. This is where this episode gets a bit produced for me, because every single time that the girl does something that we're supposed to, as an audience, react to, someone in the workroom goes, "Oh, I don't think she's doing that well. You know she's not matching their energy." The problem is, they are telling us what we are supposed to think about someone. Therefore, when someone is safe or when someone wins, we go, "Oh, that makes sense because everyone in the workroom said it was true." Production is editing this so that we think a certain way. As I'm sure in the real workroom, Candy didn't just say, "Oh, she did really well." I'm sure she gave 3 answers. "Oh, she did really well." "Oh, she did really poorly." And she was fine compared to the other 2, so that they could edit it all together for us to think a certain way. I don't think that was really necessary. I don't really like to be told how to think about someone, and I've always thought it's kind of demeaning almost for a show to be like, "You're too stupid to think for yourself. Here's how you should think." So next up is Gottmik. I think that Gottmik is hilarious in this challenge. I think that she fit perfectly into this character. I'm believing that she wrote this book. She has very good back and forth with Ross. She knows her character, she knows her cues, she knows how to portray that character. I think Gottmik, in an improv challenge, did extremely well. So Olivia comes in, and Olivia's the mime. I'm gonna say this. I think the Gottmik did the best in the scene, but the thing was that Gottmik had verbal humor, whereas Olivia had physical humor. I think they both could have been in the top. The problem happens when Utica comes in. I'm gonna start by saying that Utica looks beautiful. Utica looks brilliant. The wig, the top, the belt, the nails, all of it, perfect. She looks stunning. The problem is that Utica has been doing improv for a very long time in a troupe. Now, when that happens, you get very accustomed to the style of improv that troupe does. And you sort of find inside jokes maybe in that troupe because you've been doing improv with them for so long. The problem is that when you go out into the real world, a lot of that is not funny. Just because it's funny in your improv troupe in Missouri doesn't mean that it's funny to the world on RuPaul's Drag Race. Okay, so the first rule of improv is yes and. Great. The second rule of improv is let the other person have a moment. Utica comes on the stage and just talks about nothing. Starbucks has nothing to do with the scene. Utica is not funny. Utica does not tell jokes, and Utica, at a certain point, hogs the scene. I think Utica was so overconfident in her improv ability that she failed at this challenge. Even Ross tried to interrupt her. Nope, can't be stopped. So in the next group, Candy comes on stage. I'll start by saying that Candy has very clearly not acted or done improv a day in her life, and it shows. She does fine. I think she has a grasp on the concept and the character. The problem is in the execution of portraying this character. I think she has some good back and forth with Ross, but when Simone comes in, Simone really carries the scene. Simone knows how to act, Simone knows how to captivate an audience, and when Simone comes on, she really just pushes Candy to the side. When Simone comes on, from the moment she climbs over that gate, she is funny, she is comfortable in herself, she is comfortable in the character, she is comfortable in the scene that she is in, portraying the story. At a certain point, I'm not really sure why Candy was in the top. I feel like this was a safe performance for Candy, especially when Simone was right there. At the end of it, they sing "Row, row, row your boat." I want to know why. This was so stupid. This felt like filler. This was dumb. And in the last scene, Tina Burner comes into the scene at 100, which is something they have told other people not to do. Why does Tina get a pass? You know, she's doing that thing that every single New York queen does. She overacts and she steals the show and she makes a fool of herself. But the problem is it's not funny. Just like Candy, Elliot has also not acted a day in her life. Never done improv, and again, it shows. Why does every single person who has never done improv want to play these very small and subdued parts? Is it like, oh, I'm supposed to be professionally acting, so I'm gonna be timid and I'm gonna let the words speak for themselves? No, this is Drag Race. Be big, be bold. Especially when you're next to Tina Burner, who's truly acting a fool right next to you. By the middle of this scene, it really just devolves into chaos. This is probably the worst skit out of all 4. It just doesn't go anywhere. Tina and Elliot committed a crime on Drag Race. They committed a crime on international television by making us watch them make out with each other. I didn't need to see that. We didn't need to see that. It was really just something for them to be like, oh, they made out on Drag Race. Oh my God, 2 drag queens making out with each other. Groundbreaking. It wasn't funny and it felt like a call for help. They knew they were gonna be in the bottom and they had to grab the attention somehow. Back in the workroom, they truly try and force this storyline upon us. Elliot's saying that no one likes her, no one understands her, that she has no friends in this competition, and it's all because of her depression. You know, Elliot's gonna go home next week. It's Snatch Game. What is she gonna do? Win? So of course we have to squeeze whatever storyline we have in her out, and it just happens to be that she has no friends because she has depression. So we end up passing this ball from Elliot to Tina. Tina says, oh, my mother had depression, my mother was on pills. We go through Tina's storyline. The difference between Elliot and Tina's storyline is that Elliot is going home next week and Tina's storyline is going to be carried through the competition until she's in the top 4. So by the end, when Tina is at the end of this competition, we'll say, oh, she had vulnerability because her mother had depression. This Tina and Elliot relationship really gives me like Bianca and Adore of season 6 or Bob the Drag Queen and Derek of season 8. It's very like the winner of the season being like, oh, I'm better than you, but you're so sweet and I didn't get to know you before because I'm such a big personality and you're nobody. So on the main stage, everyone looks completely ordinary. RuPaul has probably worn this dress 6 times and we don't even know it because we're so used to it by now. Of course, the judge is T.S. Madison. After Silky portrayed her on Snatch Game, we just had to have her on. Okay, so this week's runway is Beat It. Just beat it. So Denali comes out first. Denali is dressed as a chandelier. This is probably the best that Denali has ever looked. And she looks expensive, she looks gorgeous. She's literally wearing a chandelier that gives her a shape. All of these crystals and rhinestones are coming off of her shoulders. I mean, this could really be worn at the Met Gala. Remember when they had the Christianity runway a couple years ago? It looks like she dressed up as the church. The reason that Denali was not safe this week is only for story, so that she can go back in the workroom and beat herself up about not being good enough, so that next week, RuPaul can walk in the room and say, you've been safe the past 3 weeks, maybe you should be in the top. Then of course, when Denali is inevitably not in the top, because it's RuPaul's choice, she'll go home. This is the exact edit that they gave Jan last season. I wholeheartedly believe that both Denali and Rosé should have been in the top this week. But let's talk about Rosé. Rosé was not in the top, probably because of this outfit. Now, I'm gonna start by saying that this is the best she has ever looked on this runway. The problem is, almost everyone looked their best on this runway. So, on any other week, Rosé would have looked great and would have won. But this week, compared to Candy, compared to Simone, compared to Utica, she was towards the bottom in the look factor. I think it's a good look and I love the hair with the little curls in the front. I think ultimately she looks great. And I guess it's a shame that she wasn't in the top. So Lala Ree is wearing a beaded 2-piece. This is not enough for the runway. This is why she was in the bottom. The hair is the best part about this outfit. Her makeup is also having an issue. It's too orange in the highlight areas, especially when the light hits it, too bright. Lala Ree is not exactly a look queen, so at a certain point, I don't really know what we expected from her. Most of her outfits are very regular, maybe something that you see at a club. If she had been a bit more comfortable in the improv, maybe she could have been safe this week. So Gottmik has anal beads on her head. This is a look that we've seen before on Drag Race, but Gottmik does it in a completely different way. I think this outfit is extremely fun. I love this makeup with like the cheeks cut out in red. I think Gottmik looks amazing tonight. Gottmik normally looks very good. The problem again with Gottmik is that this is not as good as some of the other people who also did their best on this runway. Again, a pattern. Olivia looks the best that she's looked on this runway, but compared to other girls, it does not match up. This is a very safe look for Olivia. This hair is extremely reminiscent of the hair that Candy just wore a couple weeks ago, but I think that Olivia wore it better. I think this outfit is pretty simple. I think the design on the shirt and the skirt are very interesting. I think it's of New York City, maybe. It's that sort of airbrush design. I don't really see where the beads come in except for the hair. I do see her twirling something around. Are those beads? If I looked at this, I wouldn't say this is a Bead runway. I think that Olivia could have been safe. I don't know if she really deserved to be in the top when Denali and Rose were right there. Utica is always stunning. Utica is a look queen. I mean, Utica is always the most conceptual on the runway. Always has a concept for her looks and executes it perfectly. This look obviously made her safe. It is like a bondage, like Bride of Frankenstein, bloody wedding dress. I mean, extremely detailed. All of it has beading down it. It's like beaded fringe everywhere. I can't believe that Utica has not been clocked for wearing the same wig at least 3 times on this runway. We just had a whole moment with someone like Aiden Zane last season for wearing the exact same wig every week. Maybe because it's just her hair and that's not the focal point of her head, but she has worn this wig a couple of times on the runway. Candy comes out, this is the best she's ever looked. Regardless of how good she looks, I think that this could have been safe. I mean, really all it is a fringed gold bodysuit with a big fur over it and a hat with a bunch of crystallized beads coming off of it. I mean, of course, for Candy, it's beautiful, but is it a bit simple? Kind of. There's only a few pieces and there's not like a lot of detail to look at it like someone like Utica. She says this is the best she's ever looked, which means that everything from here on out is going to be downhill. I don't really know what there's to say about Simone. This is this week's winner. This is the best outfit on this runway. She always just brings these fresh, new takes that are always so referenced. She knows her reference points and she's like very obviously referencing specific points in history. In fashion, in drag, in culture. She's very smart when it comes to the runway. And her hair has her name in it. All right, Tina is a clown. The funniest noise of this entire episode is when Tina has these reveals and drops the beads to the ground to just a clack. She takes off those titties and it goes. That gave me a good chuckle. Tina really could have been in the bottom. This look was bad and her performance was bad. Her makeup is messy, like washed out. I don't know, Tina just did not do it for me this week. Elliott is so boring. Elliott is a flapper. A flapper in 2020, groundbreaking. I mean, it's just something that I could see anywhere, no matter where I go. I don't need to be on Drag Race to see this. I mean, she walked out on the runway and I said, oh, Elliott's going home this week. Okay, so Tina, Gottmik, Denali, and Rose are safe. All of these are awful choices. Tina should have been at the bottom, Gottmik should have been in the top, Denali should have been in the top, and Rose very possibly could have been in the top. Olivia wins for the 2nd week in a row. Not my first pick, and Utica is safe because of her runway. Duh. So Lala and Elliott are in the bottom. Immediately I said, oh, Lala is going to send Elliott home. We know what Lala is capable of in a lip sync. So the lip sync begins and both of them really have the same amount of energy, but that quickly fades by halfway through the lip sync. I think that Elliott has more conviction. Elliott does a split and then does another split. The thing is, Elliott did not need to do that second split. The second split was a bit overkill. Okay, to me, this feels like a lip sync that could have gone either way, and if RuPaul had saved either of them, the producers could have edited it in a way that it would have been believable for that person to win. I think that Lala could have won this lip sync, but I think that Elliott was chosen to push a storyline. I think also the point that Elliott won this lip sync was when the lyrics said "ain't no competition" and Elliott pointed directly at Lala. So Elliott wins. I just don't understand how someone with so much personality went home to someone with so little personality. This choice doesn't exactly make sense to me. And to be honest, I think that Elliot is gonna go home next week. But you know, I've said that for about 3 weeks now, and here is Elliot. So next week is another rusical. This is confusing to me since we just had a rudimentary last week. I'm convinced that the week after this is going to be the Snatch Game, since I believe we will have 8 girls. Well, thank you all for watching. I'm Kylie-Cloud, and I too have an invisible boyfriend. Where is he? I don't know.